You know the story, right? The college dropout in a garage who builds an empire. The young genius who changes the world with one brilliant idea. But what's the real story behind a startup? Well, today we're going to tear down some of the biggest myths about entrepreneurship and look at the hard data, the reality of it all. Okay, let's get into it.
First things first, let's talk about the star of our show, the entrepreneur. We usually think of them as just, a business owner. But in the world of economics, they're seen as something way, way bigger.
Yeah, a brilliant economist named Joseph Schumpeter saw the entrepreneur as a true revolutionary, not just someone starting another company, but a pioneer, someone who unleashes something fundamentally new on the world, a new product, a new way of doing things, and in the process, they literally drag society forward. It's a pretty heroic role when you think about it. Okay, so that's the big, heroic idea. But let's pivot from that awesome vision to the often brutal reality of what it actually takes to get a new venture off the ground.
So really, how hard can it be? I mean, we see new companies popping up all the time, don't we? You'd think it would be pretty straightforward to just get started. Well, the truth is a little more complicated.
So what's the very first hurdle for our would-be pioneer? Good old-fashioned paperwork. Just take a look at this data from the World Bank. In Germany, you're looking at 9 different procedures that take 8 days just to get the green light. Even in a place like the US, it's still a 4-day, 6-step process. Every single one of those steps is time and money you're burning before you've even sold anything. The grand journey begins in a waiting room. And this gets to a really important idea called the revolving door. See, when you make it easy for businesses to start, you get a ton of activity, which sounds great, but it also means it's easy to fail and just disappear. You end up with all this churn, businesses constantly starting and stopping, but not a lot of real, lasting change for the economy. It turns out just opening the door isn't enough. You've got to be able to survive what's on the other side. So, if the whole thing is such a gauntlet, what actually helps a new company beat the odds? How do they survive and actually thrive? It's definitely not just about one brilliant founder. Turns out success depends on a whole ecosystem. Think of it like trying to grow a plant. You need the right kind of soil, you need a population with the right skills, that's human capital, you need a strong economy with access to funding, and you need institutions, government, that don't just crush new ideas with red tape and taxes. It's this whole complex mix of factors working together. Let's see how this plays out in the real world. This chart shows startup rates in Germany's knowledge economy. Now, the overall rate kind of bounces around, but look closer at those yellow and teal lines. Those are the knowledge-intensive sectors, high-value tech, R&D services, and they are clearly on the rise. This is where the modern pioneering is happening. And we can zoom in even more. This chart is pretty amazing. It shows that within Germany, Berlin has become an absolute powerhouse for these kinds of startups, just blowing past other regions. Why? Because it's managed to build that ecosystem, the right blend of talent, money, and culture. It's become a real entrepreneurial hub. All right, so you've got these hotspots of activity, with startups coming and going all the time. But what's the long-term effect of all this chaos? Well, it's not just noise. It's actually a force that can reshape entire industries. So we talked about the revolving door. Lots of spinning wheels, but not much real progress. But Schumpeter had a much more powerful name for when real innovation hits: a gale of creative destruction. This isn't just churn, this is a storm. This is where the innovative new companies actively kick out the old, slow, inefficient ones. It's economic evolution in action, and honestly, it can be pretty brutal. In this whole evolutionary storm, it usually follows a pretty predictable pattern. It starts with this chaotic phase of high entry, where tons of startups are all trying out new products. Then comes the shakeout, a really tough period where most of those early ideas fail and disappear. But out of all that chaos, a dominant design appears. Think about the first iPhone. Suddenly, everybody knew what a smartphone should be. And after that, the whole game changes. The focus isn't on dreaming up the product anymore. It's on perfecting the process, making it faster, better, and cheaper. Okay, so we've looked at how businesses and whole industries evolve. But what about the pioneers themselves, the founders? Well, this brings us to what might be the most stubborn myth of them all. You've definitely heard this idea, right? Famously summed up by Mark Zuckerberg. The popular image is of this brilliant young kid who's not weighed down by the old ways of doing things, who can just see the future more clearly than anyone else. And look, this isn't just some random media story. It is baked right into the culture of venture capital.
Paul Graham, the guy who founded the legendary startup incubator Y Combinator, flat out said that investors start getting skeptical once a founder hits 32. The belief is that youth equals innovation, period. It's a great story. It's a compelling narrative we all love to tell. But is it true? Does the actual evidence back any of this up? No, not even close. The data tells a completely different story. The average age of a founder behind one of the most successful, fastest-growing startups in the world is 45, not 25, 45. And that's true even in the heart of Silicon Valley. The stereotype isn't just a little bit wrong, it's the total opposite of reality. So why? What's going on here? It's actually pretty simple. Experience matters. A founder with years of experience in their industry isn't just starting from zero. They already know what the real problems are, they have a network of people they can call, and they actually know how to build and lead a team. Experience isn't a burden, it's a superpower. And that leaves us with a really fascinating question to chew on, doesn't it? When we look at what really moves our economy forward, what truly drives progress, what's more important? Is it the rebellious energy of youth, or is it the hard-won wisdom of seasoned experience? The data seems to suggest the answer isn't quite what we've always been told. This explainer was based on a lecture about innovation economics from Professor Knut Blind at the Technische Universität Berlin. Thanks for joining us.